I was just saying basically that you're going to get a variance of opinions about the race, use of African American, black, Negro. It just depends on who you're actually talking to. There are some blacks who are offended by African American, but I was saying it would be interesting to know how city council members actually refer to race when you consider single member districts. It's okay when we're talking about the gentleman's agreement to have place 6 set aside for a quote unquote black or African American and place 2 for a Hispanic. And so race is
those are filled by Cheryl Cole and Mike Martinez right now.
Exactly.
Mike Martinez was mayor pro tem previously. Cheryl Cole is mayor pro tem right now.
And so that then leads to that same little question I asked about the Urban Renewal Board. Why is that? Why is that okay to have a gentleman's agreement that's related to race when we're supposed to be in a post-racial society?
So what do you think about that? I think it's good that we have representation of all different races on the city council. I don't know about requiring it, and that I feel like that puts like a burden on those that are black or Latino, that they feel like they have to represent that entire community. When in reality, they might just represent, the people of Austin or a district.
I think I would prefer to have people who represent my interest, because not all black people think alike.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to Clarence Thomas, but we all know that he's very conservative. So he may not be the type of person I would want to represent me. Not that he, obviously is representing me in the local arena, but I'm just using him as an example to say just because the color of his skin is like mine doesn't necessarily mean he has my views. So I would rather have 2 or 3 members on the board that had views like mine that I could go to on different issues, as opposed to the black person who is handling the issues. And just to give an example, it's like the NAACP. No offense to them, but I'm passionate about education. And you don't see them like back in the day in the streets of Austin picketing, protesting about education. But if it's police brutality, you do see them. So just because they represent predominantly African Americans, although the organization wasn't formed that way in 1909. They had blacks and whites and, colored people who represented. My point is simply that just because someone's black doesn't mean they think like I do.
That's such a great point. We want people to represent our interests in government. And it's so hard to find that, especially in the two-party system.
Yes.
Let's go back, Bush versus Gore. I don't know. I don't think either one of them represented either my interests. I voted Gore because I didn't think Bush could write his own name, and I still stand by that. I don't think he can spell, read, or write. But it's so hard to find someone who represents your interests, regardless of skin color. And I think you're absolutely right that that's almost like replaced what should be political discussion about issues. And it's be like, oh, well, here you got the black person running for this office and the Latino person running for this office. They will automatically handle your issues because you belong to one of those racial groups. And of course, all minorities do not think alike, and that's just such a great point that it's a distraction from the real issues.
And it happens in city council as we speak. I mean, there's at least one organization that caters to African American males. Well, that's nice. That's the pool of money that the city seems to have given to education for a black cause. But where are the measurable outcomes? As an educator, I'm looking for literacy. I'm looking for a connection between the classroom and what the men and boys are doing in the community. I don't want funding just for talk. The Hispanics are a good example. They recently received a $400,000 grant from the Kellogg Foundation to grow their own teachers collectively. So you have partnership, community, university, a true partnership. I think that's what's needed in the black community as well. We don't need black men, no offense, Dr. this, Reverend that, to just talk at the black men and boys, the young men and the boys. We need them to be engaged in the process and to do things. And I'll give you a real example. Austin does great with building the outside of, the community. So we have this wonderful library. The Carver Museum is next to the library. And there's nothing of substance. Where's the black literature inside the facility when you walk inside? Same with this Diedrich Hamilton House. I know that it took a lot of negotiation. I applaud the citizens of Austin for putting an African American center. But when the newspaper editor of NACOA said, I need help because of typographical errors, grammatical errors, and then the city doesn't realize there needs to be a literacy connection. When visitors go to that brand new building, $1.5 million that's being allocated, they're going to pick up papers perhaps that have grammatical errors, have typographical errors. And that's a reflection of, unfortunately, all blacks. And as you can tell, we're not all uneducated, and some of us do care. And so it disturbs me that Austin, in many respects, gives money to what looks good, to the aesthetics. Where's the substance? So Create Austin needs the infrastructure. And guess what? If you don't have an educator on these boards, that's the disconnect. An educator will see that literacy is everywhere. Literacy is a part of Create Austin as well. It's a part of building the black community. It's not just about the brick and mortar. Sorry.
Wow, that is just fantastic. Zenobia, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure having you, and I look forward to seeing you down at City Hall, holding our city representatives accountable and ensuring they actually look at the law that's on the books, kind of judge it by common sense. And thank you so much for sharing your perspective with our listeners. This was just wonderful.
Well, thank you, and I encourage any citizen who's listening to actually call your representative and ask them to repeal this bad law.
Absolutely. And if you'd like to find out the numbers of the representatives of Austin, I know you can find them on fluoridefreeaustin.com. You can probably also Google just Mayor of Austin, but I know all of them are listed at fluoridefreeaustin.com if you'd like to call your representatives and let them know how you feel about these ridiculous, antiquated laws still on the books and still being enforced here in 2011. These laws are back from 1959, when really these should be these should be pre-Civil War laws that they're so old. So thank you again for coming on.
Thank you, Dr. Love.
All right, so we have just a few more minutes. I'm going to try to wrap up what's been going on in the nation regarding political issues. If you have been watching CNN or Fox or CNBC or really any news program at all recently, you will know that we are in deep trouble with debts at the national level. We are so far in debt that we are up to our eyeballs in debt. In fact, we're up to the ceiling in debt. We have come up so high that right now the government is no longer allowed to spend anything else until the debt ceiling has been raised. Is that going to happen? Well, Republicans and Democrats both want it to, but Republicans are holding out for something that's not even a compromise. It's just they want everything. Basically, they want to just slash spending and have no more revenue generation. Sounds nice. I would really like federal government spending to come tumbling down to just the bare essentials, really just what's in the Constitution. That would be great. But that's not very likely to happen. And if you cut it down to where you balance the budget without raising revenue at all, we're probably going to lose a lot of money in Social Security and Medicare. I don't like those programs, and I hate the idea of throwing people off of them who are dependent upon them. When you take people off of those programs, you're either going to force them onto the streets into substandard living conditions or force them in with their families. And perhaps they should be living with their families, but that's not the way our society works today. It might be in 30 years when Social Security and Medicare are bankrupt and we can't put our parents in nursing homes. But right now, that's not the way things are. And requiring the government to balance the budget immediately sounds good, and it would be great if they could do it. I think it'd be very difficult to balance the budget without raising any revenue whatsoever. So the Republicans, I think, need to bargain a little bit and work this out. Now, one real question is, what if they don't raise the debt ceiling? What's going to happen? Are we going to default on our debt? The answer is absolutely not. Even if we do not come to a compromise between the Republicans and Democrats about raising the debt ceiling right away. It's due on Tuesday, by the way. This has all got to happen by Tuesday. If it doesn't happen by then, the government still has enough funds to pay off our Treasury bonds as well as our Social Security and Medicare. So you'll still get your Social Security check, you'll still get your medicine if you're old, and you'll still get your interest payments if you own Treasury bonds. The only thing is we're not going to be able to afford things like the SEC, the Exchange Commission, which missed things like Bernie Madoff running the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. So we're going to lose some ineffective government agencies, or the FCC, which regulates radio. Without them, gosh, who knows what I'd be saying on air. So if we don't pass the debt ceiling, if we don't raise the debt ceiling right away by Tuesday, we're not going to lose everything. We're not going to default on our debt. We're not going to, the economy is not going to collapse. It might look a little bad, but the important thing is we're going to be able to pay off our debt even without raising it. So stay tuned for that. That's all going down Tuesday. I'd like to thank our guest, Zenobia Josephs. Thank you so much for coming. It was awesome having you. And thank you, listener. And I hope you keep your eye on Austin City Council to see what's going on down there. And make sure you watch what's going on at the federal level. It's really interesting bargaining between the Democrats and the Republicans going on right now. We have come to the end of the hour. Thank you for listening to Lone Star Politics. Stay involved, stay informed, and get active in your local government.